should I do with my hands?
What should I do with my hands? Welcome to the Fuck the Stigma podcast.
What's up? Thanks for having me.
I want to preface this episode with people will get offended, maybe. You know, like it can make certain people uncomfortable, could get a lot of hate. But I personally, on this platform and on this podcast, I really want to put everybody's voice and opinion out there. And I'll do my best to play devil's advocate and kind of give you the space to speak your truth.
Okay.
But
Appreciate that.
But yeah. So
that's a good thing I don't give a shit.
Yeah. So no, yeah, because I feel like everybody deserves to have a voice,
Right.
regardless of who you are. Like, I want this place to be a safe space for people to talk about whatever the fuck they want.
No question.
So, I brought Spence on here today because it's, first of all, Pride Month, and
let's go.
Let's go, and I want to talk about the stigmas associated with being transgender. So, how do you identify?
How do I identify it? As a person. What you mean? That's one of those things that's kind of like for me anyway, it's a loaded question. You know what I'm saying? I'm still in my journey learning how I really identify myself. I am a trans man or a man of trans experience or whatever. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm a human being just like everybody else.
And so I kind of want to educate. I want to just pull something up really quick.
Okay.
On understanding gender identity in general. So first, transgender is a broad term that can be used to describe people whose gender identity is different from the gender they were thought to be when they were born. Trans is often used as a shorthand for transgender.
I'm not one of those people who could be like, oh, I was born this way, and I can't say that for myself. I can't say that in my journey of life, making this decision was the best for me then and it's working for me now. You know what I'm saying? I can't say that. I've had some experiences growing up with, you know what I'm saying, with being molested or dealing with like sexual assault and stuff like that. So I'm very logical, and I'm not one of those people that would discount that as, you know, having an impact on me and the person I became. I know
you're saying it did have an impact on you and the person you became?
I would say for what I've learned with children and the little classes that I've taken on parenting and stuff like that, that if I experienced some type of trauma in my developmental years, it would be impossible for me to say that didn't have an impact. I know that the person me here today is a sum of all the experiences that I've had up until this point. So everything plays its part. I'm just saying that to say I'm not one of those people that say, oh, I was born this way, because I don't know.
That is a good point. Mm-hmm. That is a very good point.
And I'll say this also, this is me, this is my story. I can't speak for no community as a whole.
Yeah.
Anybody else at large, I can say for me, Spencer, and the way that I think, I can't say how I was born because I don't know. But I know growing up, I've experienced some things that had to have had an impact on me.
100%. Yeah, it's crazy because
you see,
in a way, I want to believe that you already were born a man. Like
right. I'm not one of those people that'll say that. I can't say that. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Because I was molested when I was younger. I'll put that out there and be honest about that. And the only reason why I put that out there because during those younger developmental years, dealing with something that's of a sexual nature, I cannot say that didn't have an impact on how I would view myself overall. Not from a sexual orientation aspect, but just from a identity aspect. I can't deny that had some type of impact on me. Now, to what extent, if that wouldn't happen, would I still be where I am now? I don't know. But for my story, I can't say that didn't have an impact because it impacted me emotionally. And, you know what I'm saying, going on this healing journey, I know that all those little things were things that I had to learn from and grow from. So I can't say that I was changing genders from birth. I don't deal with all that. I just know for me, I look good with a motherfucking mustache, and that's what I'm rocking with. You know what I'm saying? I know I'm comfortable in the body that I'm in now and how it looks. Mm-hmm. And I feel better about myself now than before when I didn't identify as a man. I feel more right.
Sometimes you will see, I personally had a friend growing up who is now identifying as a woman, but when I met her, you know, it was a little appeared as a little boy, and just there was a lot of flamboyancy and femininity. So it's like, where did this kid learn it from? Like, or was it just innate in her to like be more feminine and like want to kind of be a woman? You know, so it's really tricky is if like we're born that way or things kind of. Another thing is like, are we born gay? Like, was I born gay, or did things happen to where it made me gay? Or are we all gay and or are we all gay and only some of us choose to accept it, right, or ever realize? So very tricky. I don't know if I'm sure there's a study on it somewhere.
No question. See, the only reason why for me personally I don't get that deep in the weeds because it's nuanced. You know what I'm saying? That conversation is very nuanced. You have
what does
to
that
take
mean?
It means it's you have to be able to break down the little minutiae of everybody's individual experience. You know what I'm saying? Like with your friend you was talking about, that person might have been effeminate, but I don't know that person, so I can't speak to how they was raised, what environments they was in. Did they have a man in the house, and all that other stuff that can impact childhood development? All of that has to be taken into account. Yeah. So whether or not a person is born gay, I've seen the little studies where they talk about they might be able to find a gene and all that other shit. To me,
yes, I've heard somebody told me like it's proven like in the womb, like they have a different part of it. Right.
I mean, until you get that extra chromosome, everybody's born female anyway. So I don't, for the way that I live my life, I don't break it down that deep. I just know for me, myself, my experiences and my journey through my healing process and getting to the point that I'm at today, how I was born doesn't affect me as much as what am I doing right now to make sure that mentally, spiritually, emotionally, I'm on the right path.
That you are true to who you are.
Exactly.
Cool. So what did that kind of look like? When did you start struggling with gender identity? When did you start noticing it?
I didn't start transitioning until later on in life.
Like around what age?
I actually started taking testosterone about 6 years ago. I started dating before I lived as a lesbian, of course. Yeah. I started dating chicks when I had my first girlfriend at 14, 15-ish or something like that. My experience was kind of different because I've always been like a tomboy and that sort of thing. I always played with the boys. Was always
and it was that was innate in you to.
Yeah, as far back as I can remember. Okay. You know what I'm saying? It was one of those things where I grew up in a ultra Christian household like most black people, you know what I'm saying? And I was raised in a church. So being gay, or I didn't know anything about any LGBTQ, anything like that. All I knew is that I didn't want to do the things that the other girls did. You know what I'm saying? And I knew I wanted to play football, you know what I'm saying, when I was younger. But my grandmother wouldn't let me, you know what I'm saying, because she literally was like, she was not signing them papers because girls are supposed to wear dresses and not play. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Not play boys sports or whatever. The coach to the team was like, yo, you know what I'm saying, we'll make sure you straight, everything, and she wasn't having, you know what I'm saying? But that was, I don't fault her for that because that's the time that, you know, she was raised in. I got my first girlfriend when I was in like 9th grade or something like that. Is kind of funny because how I ended up even looking into, we'll say, my sexual orientation was I was in a group home. I was raised in the system. I went to my first group home when I was probably about 12, 13 years old. You know what I'm saying? I'm a product of my environment. Both my parents was drug addicts. My grandmother was given guardianship over me. And so once my mom died and I started acting out in school and everything, of course they put me in a group home. And one of the people in the group home, I guess they saw something in me or whatever and took me to a youth organization that they had in D.C. I'm from Washington, D.C. And it was called Smile. And it was just like a safe space. Above all else, regardless of how you identified, it was just a safe space. And just being around like queer people or, you know what I'm saying, people my age that were exploring their identities, it made me more comfortable to look at who I was. You know what I'm saying? I always knew that I looked at girls differently. And it's funny because growing up, people used to tell me, oh, you're going to be a dyke, you're going to be this when you get older and stuff like that. And I didn't know what that was back then. You know what I'm saying? I was raised in a church. I had no idea. I just knew that the way that they were saying it was a very accusatory tone. So I knew I didn't want to be that. I was like, I'm not being no fucking dyke, fuck that. Till I found out what it meant.
Because they used it in a negative way.
Yeah, exactly. And then I found out they meant I'm a like pussy, and it was like, huh, checks out.
No, but I had the same thing happen to me. Like elementary school kids are telling me like, yeah, you're the man in the relationship. That word and that like phrase pisses me off in general. Especially with in gay relationships, it's like, oh, who's the man or the woman in the like? What does that mean? Like we're both.
Well, I think too, you got to look at. I think that's more because of the way that our society is structured.
How are you having sex if it's not a man and a woman? It's hard for them to envision it another way.
Not even just that, but just like the stereotypical positions that people play.
Yeah.
Like the man is supposed to do X, Y, Z, the woman is supposed to do this, and this. And it was kind of crazy because being raised by my grandmother, you know what I'm saying, in that kind of household, I don't know where I had very patriarchal ideas, even in my relationships, when I identified as a lesbian and I deal with women. It was like, all right, cool, I pay the bills, I do this, but here's the expectation of you. Now, it's a fucked up way of thinking about it. I don't know where I got that at, but I know I've always just been masculine. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That was around what age you said?
Like 14, 15.
14, 15.
And I identified as a lesbian up until I found out about, I think I was online on YouTube or something, and somebody's story ended up coming across, and I was like, what's this?
Yeah.
And I started looking into it, and it was like, for me, it just clicked, because I always had this thing where in my relationships, I had this one young lady, I ain't gonna say her name, but I used to date, she knows who she is, who I used to be like, yo, tell me I'm your boyfriend and shit like that. And she'd be like, no, I'm not doing it. I'd be like, come on, man, why just, you know what I'm saying? I don't know why, but it was a part of me that was obsessed with being able to have that role, and just being like girlfriend and girlfriend didn't really hit me where I, you know what I'm saying, kind of like hit me in the soft spot.
It didn't sound like you didn't like that label, that word.
And I never felt like, because like I've met, of course, no other, like, we call them like doms, lesbians and stuff like that, and I never saw myself really fit in that mold, but I had no other alternative, so I identified with what I knew. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, okay, so this fits, until it didn't.
You know, some of the people's concerns against transgender people, and like the remember that whole drag show thing where like they're banning it in states.
Yeah. Drag queen's been around since the beginning of time, and now all of a sudden it's a problem.
Yeah, people are scared of drag queens and such impressing upon their children. You know how you came across, oh, this is what being transgender is. They're scared of their kids seeing that and wanting to like transition or something. I think that's their point. And
I think the difference with that, though, is that was something that I identified with. Mm-hmm. So with being drag queens, it's like, if it doesn't fit you, if it's not something in you that's curious about that sort of thing, it's gonna be like, oh, okay, that's nice. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's gonna be an awareness. But just because you're exposed to something, I think, hold on real quick, to touch back on the other point, what trips me out about that is with all the crazy shit that's happening in society, like with all the negative ideologies and shit like that children are exposed to, that's the one that's the most concerning.
Yeah.
Like, the fucking gun culture in the United States is ridiculous. We got more guns than people. That's not a problem. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That is okay, because it's hyper masculinized. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and at the end of the day, if you are a loving and attentive parent, you're gonna be aware of what your kid is around. You know what I'm saying? Ain't nobody trying to turn nobody's kids into no fucking drag queens. That's stupid. It's ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? Like, I have sisters, and once I told them about me transitioning, they didn't say, oh shit, I want to do it too. Like, it's stupid. It's like, come on, man, people think logic, use fucking logic. It makes no sense.
I don't know how to counteract that. I really don't, because I think you have a valid point.
I mean, it is. It's so much like, it's kind of like, even when you look at, say, like for instance, like with the Me Too movement. It was like, oh, now you can't even look at a girl, or, you know what I mean, you don't get charges pressed up against you. It was like, no, as a society, once different ideas are introduced, it's almost like a pendulum. Yes, the pendulum might swing too far in one direction, but eventually it settles down in a happy medium. But if all this time drag queens haven't been a problem, why right now today is it like keep the kids away from them? You know what I'm saying? And at the end of the day, the difference is it's a lot of drag queens that don't identify as transgender. They're not trying to be women. They're performers. You know what I'm saying? They like getting on stage. It's nothing. It's impersonation. You know what I'm saying? It's like just being a female impersonator. Because from my experience and even for myself, most like actual trans women, ain't nobody trying to stand out. Motherfuckers is trying to blend in as much as possible. Like, and I understand that for me, like that whole male privilege shit is real. You know what I'm saying?
Really?
Like, once I started transitioning, like I couldn't, man, listen, I was in the mirror looking for the motherfucking facial hair. I was waiting because it was something that is associated with masculinity. So I wanted that. And once my facial hair started growing, the conversations I was even invited into changed. Like
really?
A lot of times with the whole bathroom debate that people have been having, they'll say that for trans women, and most trans women don't want to stand out. Ain't nobody trying to be seen. You want to blend in with the gender that you identify with as much as possible. Like, so a motherfucker gonna look real sideways if I come walking up in the women's bathroom. They gonna look at me like, oh shit, you know what I'm saying? Like,
right? Imagine if somebody told you to go to the women's bathroom. It's not like anybody in that restroom's gonna feel any more comfortable.
Exactly, because they don't know what my anatomy is. They don't know. You know what I'm saying? And I guess it's a testament to the power of testosterone, because once I started taking that shit, like my changes happened almost immediately. But the crazy part about it is the only thing that really changed is I grew facial hair and my voice got a little teeny more raspy. But outside of that, I've always been me. You know what I'm saying? It's harder going the opposite way, going from female to going from male to female. I'm sorry.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. It's harder to pass.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because men have, like, when you're born a man, like, you have very prominent, like, jaw. You can you're really tall and all these things.
Exactly.
So I was actually just talking about this the other day. Like, it is easier for somebody to go from female to male.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So then that puts me in the position where it was like, see, it's one of those things where, because not too much about me has changed other than like growing facial hair, is like, do I then have a responsibility to the greater community to use this fucking inherited fucking passed down male privilege to actually like take a stance for like trans women and shit like that? I don't know, because for a minute I just enjoyed what they call it, stealth. You know what I'm saying? Like, man,
this is you actually coming out of that, because you were
no question.
You were struggling with people knowing, and I kind of get that in terms of like, I just want everybody to see me as a man because that's how I feel. But in a way, you're not owning your truth if...
When I moved to California from DC, you know what I'm saying, I was a union employee, local 26, shout out. For the past 10 years, everybody knew me as how I was before. And so I had to almost realize and accept the people around me in a whole new level, because I wasn't just changing. People's view of me was changing. You know what I'm saying? I had my co-workers that was like, yeah, I'm gonna call you this, or I'm gonna use your old name, I'm not gonna do that. Yeah, it was a lot. And that put me in a position of kind of like, even though I didn't change, even though the person I was didn't change, I just got more masculine feature, maybe my pronouns changed or whatever, it was still one of those things where I had to have a little bit of compassion for the people around me, but to a certain extent, because at the end of the day, I'm living this life. You know what I'm saying? I'm walking in these shoes. I have to deal with whatever might, you know what I'm saying, come along with it. So when I came to California, nobody knew me from before here. So I got an opportunity to just be just one of the guys. And that was it was an amazing experience until it wasn't. Because at the end of the day, I'm not one of those people that be like, oh, you know what I'm saying, like, man, this, man, that. No, I take my clothes off every night. You know what I'm saying? I know what anatomy that I have. I know what my body looks like. So because of how my brain works, I can't just be like, oh, I wasn't born a male. You know what I'm saying? And I know that. And that's why I had to get to the point where I started acknowledging the trans part of me. It's not all of me, it's just a portion of me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's just, that's why I kind of identify with the man of trans experience thing. You know what I'm saying? I'm just a different variety of man. Being born a male is one thing. I learned, because you got a whole bunch of males that ain't men. You know what I'm saying? They whack. You know what I'm saying? And so, because that's how I was raised in my environment, like a man has to live up to certain type of ideals, it kind of changed my perspective on that. Because I have to accept that part of me. I just didn't want nobody else to know that shit. You know what I'm saying? Because I've been invited in conversations now where the way that, you know what I'm saying, without giving the game away, the way that some guys talk about like females and other genders and stuff like that when it's just guys around is completely different.
It can be very obnoxious, honestly.
Oh, be a part of those conversations. A part of me was like, holy shit. Like,
that's so ew. I don't even want to imagine.
But initially, that was a part of the benefit because that meant I belonged. You know what I'm saying? Like, that meant that I was accepted. You know what I'm saying? That nobody knew me any different. And that was okay up until the point where it's like, how much of my own story am I denying by living like that?
Yes.
You know?
It's almost like you're ashamed of it in a way if you don't talk about it, you think.
To a certain extent, I ain't gonna hold you. I was. Like, people think that, this the new fad and all that other shit. Like, don't nobody want to have to deal with the shit that comes along with it.
Yeah, it's hard.
You know
I've seen it firsthand. You know what I mean? Like it's not an easy process. Even coming to terms with being trans, it's like that's hard on its own.
Growing up in a Christian Baptist household, especially with a black grandmother, the way that I was, it took a lot for me to even accept liking women.
Ooh.
I literally had a conversation with myself where I was like, bro, the young lady I was dealing with at the time, I'm like 15, she was a little older, and it was like, she was like 17, 18, we went to school together, and it was like, I love this girl. Like, I feel something for this girl every time I'm around her. I've never felt like this before. I literally had to accept that I was going to go to hell. That's where my mind was at. I'm going to hell, but I'm getting some pussy, fuck it. You know what I mean? Like, that's what it was. Because of all the religious doctrine that had been instilled in me growing up. You know what I'm saying? So once I came to terms with that, it's like at the end of the day, my perception of religion and all that stuff has progressed. You know what I'm saying? And I know now that, I feel like now, my relationship with my God is my relationship with my God. And at the end of the day, if what the Bible says is true and I'm a stand before God in judgment after my time in this fucking dimension is over with, only God is going to be able to judge me. So I don't give a fuck what nobody say now. You know what I'm saying? Y'all ain't going to do the time in hell with me if I get sent. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I would hope that as loving and compassionate as God is supposed to be, that my God is, when we talk about with the program and having a God of your own understanding, I would just hope that the good that I attempted to do outweighs me cutting my titties off. At the end of the day.
I like that. I actually like that.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
I hope that I've put enough, not just like good karma. Because at the end of the day, I'm one of those people that believe that like the epitome of expressing like God is love. You know what I'm saying? And
yes.
I'm loving and compassionate towards all people, regardless of how they present themselves. I will hope that would at least get me a little bit of favor. You know what I'm saying? Like, it ain't gonna be like, oh, you cut your titties off, go to hell. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Judgment Day is interesting topic. Yeah. Do you believe in Judgment Day?
I think the thing with that is, looking at that, I will have to examine what my belief systems are. Yeah. And I know that for me, being raised in a Christian household, I had certain beliefs in me that were instilled in me. Like, I didn't choose to go to church. I didn't choose to identify as a Christian. I didn't choose to get baptized and stuff like that. That was stuff that was my grandmother, you know what I'm saying, practicing her faith that she believed in, and as a result she wanted me to believe in it as well. As I've gotten older, I think, especially like dealing with like addiction and recovery, you know what I'm saying, being raised having parents who were drug addicts and stuff like that, a lot of that stuff kind of, those beliefs butted up against what I was going through on a personal level, you know what I'm saying. And it was like, you know, being younger and not understanding, it was like almost a tendency to want to blame God. You know what I'm saying? Like, we all go through that phase of why he let this happen to me, and you know what I'm saying, all that other stuff.
Yeah, like why were these cards dealt to me?
Right, exactly. And so I think I got to a place where I was okay with going to hell and being a lesbian. I had got to that point where I was okay with that. Me separating,
because it meant being true to yourself in this life.
right, and me yeah, because the whole living for what's gonna happen after I die, it's like, bruh, I'm dead. You know what I'm saying? Like, can I have some fun right now? Type shit. But the separation from the religion didn't really have anything to do with my sexual orientation at the time. It was more so dealing with alcoholism and shit like that, dealing with the trauma that I experienced growing up, and now it's resurfacing over and over. Because, you know, with trauma, when you repress it, it's still there. So eventually it's going to bubble up to the surface. And that's where I think my alcoholism took off, because it was like, now I need something to weigh that down. The sexual orientation was the least of my worries. When it came to my relationship with the Christian religion, the Baptist religion and stuff like that, that was really the least of it. It was more dealing with the emotional impact of the things, and how this God that I was taught of the Bible would allow all the shit that was happening, not just to me, but you look at life in general, all the crazy motherfuckers that's out here, all the crazy shit that's happening. It's like, why would a God allow that to happen? As I've gotten older, though, I've learned to make that separation between what bad people do and what my higher power does. You know what I'm saying? And that's something that I've learned going through the recovery process. Going through recovery has helped heal my relationship. Like, because even back in the day, even when I was drinking and all that shit, I still would go to church. Even when I was living as a lesbian, I still would go to church. You know what I'm saying? It's like in DC, it's more gay inclusive churches and stuff like that. So I still would go to church. Religion has always been a part of my life.
Isn't that crazy that there's some gay inclusive churches?
Mm-hmm. I mean, well, gay people love Jesus too.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
It becomes a battle, because everybody says, "Oh, that's against what the Bible says," and da 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 da. But if you examine the complete ideology of people who had those beliefs, how are they really living? You know what I'm saying? The Bible has been used to justify some crazy shit throughout history. So me liking pussy cannot be the worst of it. You know what I'm saying? That cannot be like the one thing, you know what I'm saying?
It's gonna send me to hell.
Everybody going, you know what I'm saying? Like, so it's like, yeah, okay. But I think that the example that Jesus really set is, the main thing is loving your neighbor as yourself. And if I've done that, outside of whether the transitioning or living my life how I'm living is right or wrong, I think the God that knows me and knows my heart is going to judge me accordingly.
I feel you on that one, dude. I want to go back to the gender identity. Look, so I said the definition of transgender. The definition of gender identity. Personally, I think gender identity is weird. Like, I think it's crazy that we have clothes for a man and clothes for a woman. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I think it's really just like a concept, mm-hmm. in my opinion, like a human-made concept. But look, this is the definition. Gender identity is your internal knowledge of your gender. For example, your knowledge that you're a man, a woman, or another gender. Gender expression is how a person presents their gender on the outside. That might include behavior, clothing, hairstyle, voice, body characteristics. Everyone has gender identity, including cisgender. Cisgender is somebody, like, if you're born a man and you identify as a man, you're cisgender. Right. So I'm a cis woman, you know what I mean? Because I identify as a woman, and I was born a woman.
One may same and the other may change.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. For me, it's not that deep. I think that a lot of the things you're talking about is, a part of it is try to make sense from an academic standpoint. Just so you have the correct terminologies and all that other shit. So if we talk about it in a textbook, you can be able to say, okay, this is da-da-da-da-da. When it comes down to regular, just everyday person to person, human to human, I identify as a man. I look like a man. I present myself. I use the men's bathroom. I don't put all that pressure on myself to fit into all of these boxes.
These boxes,
what it's supposed to be. I'm understanding that it's probably no part of life that's not on the spectrum. And I'm not talking about just like the therapeutic or the fucking science way, like spectrum, but like nothing is
black and white.
Black and white.
There's
life is lived in the gray.
100%. You know? I agree. I do have a hard time with that though, not putting things in a box, mm-hmm. because My ego wants everything in a box. And most people do that, want things in a box. Like, I struggled with my sexual orientation, like the label for it for a long time, because I want to put my sexuality in a box. Mm-hmm. Even though to me, to this day, my sexuality does not make sense to me.
I think it's part of the human condition to crave definition. You know what I'm saying? I want to know so that I can say that I understand it. And if I understand it, then in turn, I can give it to you in a way that makes sense. And it's just, I don't even think as people, like, if you believe in the whole globe thing, like, we fucking millions of people want a ball floating in the middle of nowhere. Make that shit make sense. You know what I'm saying? Like, certain stuff, I think we put all this pressure on ourselves. We're trying to make things fit in our own personal environments and how we relate to other people. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, if I can tell you that I'm specifically a transgender, it's like, that would make sense from a external perspective. On an internal perspective, how do I feel about me? You know what I'm saying? What do I feel when I look in the mirror? You know what I'm saying? What have I done in my life to heal? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the stuff that's important to me. You know what I'm saying? Because when the average person see me, they don't know that I'm trans. They just see, they're probably more nervous than me being a nigga than they is me being trans. Like, look at that nigga, hold your purse. You know what I'm saying? Shit like that. It's crazy because for me, that was one of the things that I had to come to grip with. You know what I'm saying? Living in a society where I went from the most disrespected group, which is black women, to the most feared group, which is black men. Like, I had to have that conversation with myself. You know what I'm saying? Just being black and living in DC, you get nerves when the police get behind you. Still to this day, when I lived as a lesbian, I did too. It's nothing like the fear I have now identifying as a black man. Nothing like it. Like, I'm talking about literally heart pumping, hands get sweaty, and I ain't got to be doing shit wrong. That was one of the things that was the most challenging aspect of it. I would think that being born female, that I'm supposed to just know certain shit about women. I was fucking clueless. I didn't know. It wasn't until I actually got to see the perspective of black women from the outside that I started being like, oh shit, like this shit is real. Because when you in the mix of it, you don't know no different. When you actually on the outside of it and you look in there, you like, oh, this is some bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Like, that changed my perspective more than anything else.
Damn.
Yeah. Like, I had a little situation where the police got involved. Before, you know what I'm saying? This was back when I was at home before I came out here. And in that situation with that young lady, the main driver for how I responded was, the police come, they could kill my black ass. Like, I literally was like, chill out, don't trip. She was upset, you know what I'm saying? Was going through something at the time, and it was like, how I responded to this situation could mean life or death. You know what I'm saying? Because I ain't gonna hold you, when I was living as a lesbian, bitch, we fighting. You know what I'm saying? Fuck that dumb shit. But my perspective on it had to change, because now the way that people perceive me is differently. You know what I'm saying? Like, I had to look at the people around me from a whole new perspective.
Have you faced any like stigmas with people, or like discrimination with people knowing that you're a trans man, like today?
Here in California, no, because ain't nobody know. Don't tell nobody shit. I didn't have to deal with that because nobody knew. Now, how that would change going forward, I'm not sure. But I've gotten to a place where I'm less concerned about it. Because at the end of the day, as long as I treat people with respect and I can see the humanity in them and I'm compassionate for them and wherever they're coming from. Because every person that you meet is dragging their own little bag of bullshit along with them. You know what I'm saying? And when I started understanding that and being able to just, like, look for the God in people. You know what I'm saying? Even whether it's that bum on the corner or it's that raggedy ass politician that's fucking the country up. All of us have a piece of God in us. And when I acknowledge that, then the pressure to be a certain type of way or to get accepted from everybody else is not as strong. So I don't know what I'll face. I know that I faced a lot more before I started transition, especially in that period before I left home, when I was, hey, this is my name now, you know what I'm saying? These are my pronouns and all that other shit. And people put a whole bunch of bullshit on the pronoun thing, but it's like, at the end of the day, you see me, you see a full beard. What the fuck would you call me she for? You know what I'm saying? And if you respect me and you just gonna be a decent human being, you will respect that this is my name and these are my pronouns. I deal with more shit with that than anything else.
There is a lot of shit on pronouns nowadays.
Oh my God.
Honestly, like, they came out with another one. I mean, I think it existed, but I was just made aware of it. Mm-hmm. So it's like, it's she, her, he, him, they, them, and there's one with an X. And I don't know what that means. And I'm scared of it.
Listen, and I don't I don't want to be like the asshole of the community, but it's like, bruh, just listen. Stop. Stop.
No, like, really, what does that one, what could it mean?
Why? Well, I understand trying to be all inclusive and all that other shit, but I'm still, it's shit about the whole LGBTQ community that I don't even understand. You know what I'm saying? Like, the whole, like, even with the whole non-binary thing, I don't fully understand it. But what I'll do is I'll respect another person and however they choose to be identified. And if I can't remember, just tell me your name. I call you your name. We keep it real simple. I had a motherfucker call me it for a minute. When I swear to God, when I was before I got out here, right when I was in that, you know what I mean? These are my pronouns, this is my name, and it was like, yeah, it, and it didn't offend me. It didn't bother me because it's like you're trying. That means that eventually, that's where understanding and having compassion for other people, because everybody has their own belief system. You know what I'm saying? And it's like your life is based on what your perspective is. And so when I started my transition at home before I got here, it was like everybody in my life was accustomed to me having this name, presenting this way, and using these pronouns. So now that I'm coming and changing that, I can't get mad at a motherfucker if it take them a little while, because what I'm doing, especially if it's a person that's like super Christian or whatever, like some people I knew were, I have to respect that it might take them a minute. And the things that I'm asking them to do might be against whatever their belief system is. So if you're calling me it, that means that you might not be at he yet, but you're not calling me she. If you wanted to be disrespectful, you would just she. When you saying it, you're at least trying. You're trying. And to me, that's better than, oh, my pronoun. Like, that's not necessary, because eventually you can get to it, you can get to he. You know what I'm saying? And the more
it is a stepping stone.
Exactly. I'm not going to bash you for not being perfect every time. I'm going to appreciate you for you at least challenging what your own belief systems is to make space for me. And what more could I ask for?
What made you want to do this? What made you, I remember I was like, hey, Fred, I want to come on the podcast. I know I did a little nudge, no force, but what kind of made you come to this realization that I do want to come on the podcast and let the community know this part about me?
Part of it was the whole, because we're in the same, recovery community, a lot of people in the community watch these. And this is an opportunity to just kind of like have my own little bootleg, little coming out party. Bootleg. You know what I'm saying? But also, like, the whole, it's kind of cliche, but representation matters. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I feel like all the things that I've experienced up until this point, whether it is coming from a broken home, being in a group home. I aged out of the system when I turned 21. I was in group homes up until the point where I went to independent living. You know what I'm saying? Dealing with sexual assault, dealing with molestation. All of those things that I've experienced up until this point, they don't have to define me, but they are a part of my story. And me being willing to tell my story gives other people permission to tell theirs. And I think that that's important, because if I hadn't have met that person, I was in the Sasha Bruce group home. That's where I was at when I first got taken to Smile. That person didn't be like, oh, you gay, you this, that. They just took me to an environment and said, how comfortable do you feel? You know what I'm saying? You get to make that decision. And because of that, I'm now in a place where if my experience can help somebody out, then it's not for nothing. Because if not, I would have spent so much time drinking to my trauma and denying my trauma and repressing my trauma. And now the only way that I can heal from it fully is if I embrace it and not allow it to define me. And that's telling my story on my terms. You know what I'm saying? Like, at the end of the day, I've been through a lot of shit. Transitioning is only a little portion of it. It's only the past 6 years of it. You know what I'm saying? I have a whole life full of things that I've experienced. And if this does nothing then other than gives that other person permission to say, you know what, I'm okay with me, then I feel like I've served the purpose.
Hell yeah. You've changed, dude. I remember when I first met you,
I was crazy, motherfucker.
You were really...
Shit, yeah, man. Listen,
you're so well spoken today, and you own your truth.
That
and
sounds like
not...
you're saying I'm the articulate Negro. I'm fucking with you. It's like you're just a well-spoken black.
You're a well-spoken black man. No, but it was really hard for you to
healing. I'm telling you, I blame that all on healing. Like coming here and actually like starting the recovery process, like that has been fucking foundational for me getting to where I'm at. I had to get sober first. You know what I'm saying? I had to stop drinking. And then that put me in a position where, by the grace of God, I ended up at Malibu. You know what I'm saying? Around people who was willing to be patient with me and give me the space that I needed to start my healing process, therapy. I've done a lot of therapy. I've done couch work. I've done EMDR. Like, my therapist at Stairways was fucking amazing. Like, all of those are things that I've done intentionally just to heal from my trauma. And because I took those steps and I was intentional with it, mixed with the recovery process and doing step work and getting to know who I am and learning what my character defects are, that has given me a opportunity to grow on an emotional level. Because they say when you start drinking, you stop growing. I wasn't mature, and I started drinking when I was 14 years old. You know what I'm saying? And I smoked a lot of PCP, you know what I'm saying? Popped a lot of E-pills, that type of shit. Growing up in DC, you know what I'm saying? Is what we did. But all of that stuff made it so that I wasn't able to approach life not only from a mature perspective, but from a understanding that all of the things that I've gone through, I've experienced them. And as a result of repressing them, I have to be intentional about getting that shit up and out. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's all type of books that's written about how your body stores and holds on to trauma. And so now that I understand that even though I've experienced some things in the past, I don't have to take that and put that in front of me now. But what I do have to do is be willing to get that shit up and off my spirit. It's been there because I was taught to repress. You ain't supposed to feel like that. You ain't supposed to cry, suck it up, deal with it and all that. It happened in the past, let it go. No, you have to be intentional with your healing. And that's what I've done up until this point. Am I completely healed? No. Am I 1,000 times better than I was 2 years ago? Absolutely.
I love it. No, it's been an honor to see you fucking grow and thrive and be uncomfortable and learn and flourish from it.
Question. And I know for where I want to be and where I'm at, I'm just scratching the surface. But I know I wouldn't be able to get anywhere had I not done this. You know what I'm saying? Had I not been willing to go somewhere and talk about how I felt. You know what I'm saying? Had I not been willing to go and have those uncomfortable conversations, you know what I'm saying? And look in the mirror and actually say, yes, I experienced that. You know what I'm saying? That's not who I am. It's just one thing that I went through. But now I have the ability to get past it. You know what I mean? I can grow past it. I can learn to, you know what I'm saying, just love myself unconditionally. And that's including everything I experienced. I wouldn't change anything that happened to me in the past. In order for me to love myself today and be okay and happy with where I am, I know it took every single thing to get me to this point. And if one hair was out of place, who's to say that I would even still be here? Because when I was drinking, I was on the fucking slow road to death. You know what I'm saying? On the outside, everything looked good. I had a house, had a union job. You know what I'm saying? I had my own whip. Everything on paper looked good. Internally, emotionally, spiritually, I was dying. You know what I'm saying? I was ready to kill myself. But I got to a point where it was like, when the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of change, then you'll do something about it. And I did. Because my shit was either, I'm going to eat this fucking bullet or I'm going to get some help. And that's what I did. And I had to be open-minded about what form the help came in. You know what I'm saying? I had to be willing to take whatever. You know what I'm saying? God didn't allow me to make it through all the things that I've experienced just to get to this point and be like, no, I don't want to do it. No. I had to be like, all right, let's go. And that's what I've done. You know, I haven't done it amazingly. I'm not perfect at it, but I've tried. You know what I'm saying? I've done my step work to the best of my ability. I've done therapy to the best of my ability. I've done the couch work to the best of my ability. I've been open and honest about the things I've experienced. And we'll see where I go from here.
Oh, yeah. Anything else you want to put out there? A message of hope, or I don't fucking know. Any last words?
Do the work to heal. You know what I'm saying? I would encourage everybody to do that. It might seem like it's going to be difficult, but you got to face them demons to beat them. That's the most important part. And don't let nobody else define who you are. You know what I'm saying? I've gotten to a place where my creator knows my heart. I just try to be the best person that I could be to the people around me. You know what I'm saying? I try to be as helpful, as loving, as compassionate, and understanding. And I will hope that the God that created this entire universe gives me some of that too.
Thank you for coming on the podcast, Spencer.
Of course, anytime. Thanks for having me. This was a blast. I like your little setup or whatever.
Yeah, the setup. It's pretty cool.
And I appreciate what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is real dope. You know what I mean? Especially with just the name of it. It's like, a lot of times as people, we can allow those stigmas to define how we see ourselves. And being able to just say, fuck them is like, it's so freeing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's a freedom that comes along with that. Some people never get the opportunity to see. You know what I'm saying? Especially like with the laws and shit they're making in other countries with fucking getting fucking murdered if you like butt sex, and anybody got time for that shit. Like, why?
Murdered if you like butt sex.
What is it, fucking Uganda somewhere in Africa where they wilding
That's
out
nuts.
now? Yeah.
Honestly, the fact that they're like, murder's the answer to your homosexuality is
right,
crazy.
like that is insane. And at the end of the day, all these people that keep screaming about Jesus, how about you be like them before you start judging other people? You know? Real. Yeah.